What happens when a promise of Formula One glory turns into a $20 million legal battle? That's exactly what's unfolding in the courts of London, pitting McLaren CEO Zak Brown against IndyCar star Alex Palou in a showdown that exposes the tensions and promises of the motorsport world. We know that contracts in racing are complex, but this story goes far beyond simple clauses. We're talking about accusations of false hope, secret plans, and heated exchanges worthy of a battle on the track. It all started in 2022, when Palou, an undeniable talent who has become one of IndyCar's most successful drivers in recent years, announced he would be joining McLaren's pool of drivers. The problem? His team at the time, Chip Ganassi Racing, released a nearly simultaneous statement claiming he would be staying with them for 2023. It was the beginning of a saga that resulted in Palou staying with CGR, but it left the door open for a multi-million-dollar lawsuit from McLaren for breach of contract, seeking approximately $20 million in damages. Now the case has hit the courtroom, and the revelations are explosive. During his testimony, Zak Brown was harshly questioned by Palou's lawyer, Nick DeMarco. The Spanish driver's defense didn't pull any punches, accusing the American of having a habit of making false promises of F1 glory only to shaft them later. The core argument is that Palou signed with McLaren with the clear objective of getting to Formula One, but began to lose faith in that promise when the team confirmed Oscar Piastri alongside Lando Norris for the 2023 season. In his defense, Brown was emphatic, stating he never strung Alex along and never told him he would be under consideration for 2023. However, he did admit there was some optionality to join F1. And this is where the plot thickens. In his witness statement, Brown detailed what those plans were. With Norris and Piastri secured as the main drivers, Palou was Plan B, ready to take the wheel if one of the drivers fell ill or was injured. But the most shocking revelation was Plan C. If Oscar Piastri underperformed in his debut season, Palou would have been the choice to take the seat full-time in 2024. The exchange of accusations grew so heated that, in a moment described as a testy exchange, Palou's lawyer accused Brown of speaking absolute rubbish made up on the spot, to which the McLaren CEO retorted that it was the lawyer who was talking rubbish. The case is still ongoing, with more testimony expected, but it already exposes the complex and sometimes brutal negotiations that happen behind the scenes in motorsport's elite. Situations like this, full of details and twists, are exactly what we love to analyze here on the channel. To make sure you don't miss any developments, not just in this case, but in all the other controversies and hot news from Formula One, your subscription is essential. So, if you enjoy this kind of in-depth analysis, hit that like button and subscribe now to Formula News USA. And for us, your comments are pure gold. Since this channel isn't monetized, your engagement is the only way we grow. Every comment tells the YouTube algorithm that our content is relevant and deserves to be shown to more F1 fans like you. So, tell us, what's your take on this fight between Brown and Palou? And while you're at it, let us know what city you're watching from. And if the fight in the courtroom seems complicated for McLaren, the situation on the track isn't far behind. The team may have secured the constructors' title with a dominant season-long performance, but the internal battle for the coveted Drivers' Championship between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris is on fire. The Singapore Grand Prix threw even more fuel on that fire, with a first-lap incident that shook the team's harmony and raised questions about the famous papaya rules. We have to remember the scenario. Piastri and Norris are the two main protagonists in the title fight. With Verstappen and Red Bull having a quieter year and out of the main contention, the battle has been entirely focused within the McLaren garage. In Singapore, starting close to each other on the grid, the tension was palpable. Norris got a strong start, tried to attack Verstappen, and in swerving ended up clipping the back of the Red Bull and subsequently colliding with his teammate Oscar Piastri to take the position. The contact was clear, and Piastri's reaction over the radio was immediate and furious. "That's not fair, I'm sorry, that's not fair," the Australian vented, clearly expecting the team to intervene and ask Norris to give the position back, something that had happened on other occasions. McLaren, however, chose not to take any action during the race, which only increased Piastri's frustration, who suggested Norris did a pretty shit job of avoiding contact. The question hanging in the air was, were the team's internal rules, which call for clean racing without contact, violated? From Lando Norris's side, the view is completely different. In a post-race interview, he admitted he wasn't even aware of Piastri's reaction at the time and vehemently defended his move. For him, it would be silly to think there was any intention to harm his teammate. Norris argued that, as a driver, his instinct is to attack when he sees a gap, and that any other driver on the grid would have done the same. "I don't want to make contact with anyone because there's just as much chance I ruin my own race and put myself out," he explained. The Brit further reinforced his point by saying that the FIA, the sport's governing body, investigated the incident and deemed it a racing incident, applying no penalty. For Norris, that's the final verdict. But what makes this episode so controversial is the team's recent history. At the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, the situation was the reverse. Norris had a slow pit stop and returned to the track behind Piastri. The team then asked the Australian to let Norris pass, considering it the fair thing to do to correct the team's mistake. Piastri complied without question. Now, in Singapore, when he felt wronged by a move from his teammate, he expected the same kind of intervention, which never came. This apparent inconsistency in applying the internal rules began to fuel a dangerous narrative within the paddock and among fans that McLaren has a bias towards Lando Norris. Despite the heat of the moment, after the race, Piastri adopted a calmer tone, stating that he trusts the team's good intentions but admitted the situation was difficult and needed to be discussed internally. With the points gap between them shrinking, every decision, every move, and every point becomes crucial, and this incident in Singapore seems to have been the last straw, creating much larger waves, including shocking rumors about the championship leader's future. And those rumors, fueled by the on-track tension, didn't take long to appear. Shortly after the dust settled in Singapore, a report from a respected Swiss publication began to gain traction, especially in Piastri's native Australia. The speculation was a bombshell. The championship leader was reportedly eyeing a future move to Ferrari in 2027. The report cited the uncertain futures of the Scuderia's current drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, as a potential window of opportunity for the Australian. But the question that echoed through the paddock was, why on earth would Oscar Piastri, the current championship leader, driving for the team that just won the Constructors' title, even be thinking about leaving? The answer, for many, lies in the sequence of events we saw at Monza and Singapore. The feeling of injustice after the incident with Norris, combined with the perception that the papaya rules were applied inconsistently, fueled theories that Lando Norris is McLaren's favorite driver. That distrust, however small, could be enough for a driver of Piastri's caliber to start looking at other options. However, one must analyze the situation coldly. Swapping McLaren for Ferrari right now seems like a move that makes no sense. We're talking about a driver who is leading the championship and recently signed a contract extension that ties him to the Woking team until at least the end of 2028. An early exit would only be possible through performance-related clauses, something that would only come into play if McLaren suddenly stopped being competitive with the new 2026 regulations. The truth is, the future is a big question mark for all teams, and right now, McLaren is the best place to be on the grid. The analysis from former F1 driver Perry McCarthy adds an extra layer of strategy to all of this. He believes that Piastri's radio outburst in Singapore wasn't just a fit of rage. McCarthy suggests the Australian threw a tantrum in a calculative way, a clever tactic to gain capital for future negotiations. In other words, by positioning himself so forcefully, Piastri was marking his territory and ensuring that, in the next 50-50 decision, the team would think twice before leaning towards Norris's side. Interestingly, McCarthy points out that the incident reversed the roles the public was used to seeing. Piastri, normally calm and collected, seemed the most emotional, while Norris, sometimes seen as mentally weaker, came out of the situation looking stronger and more controlled. Fan opinion also reflects this complexity. Many don't blame Norris for the aggressive move, nor Piastri for his frustrated reaction. The finger is pointed directly at McLaren's management. The general feeling is that the team dug a hole for themselves by creating the papaya rules. By trying to micromanage the battle between their drivers, McLaren ended up creating a scenario of distrust where every incident is analyzed under a microscope in search of supposed favoritism. At the end of the day, the Ferrari rumors are likely just speculation, the kind that always crops up when a top driver gets involved in any controversy. But whether they are true or not, they put McLaren's management in the spotlight. How is the team handling this internal rivalry that, if not managed well, threatens to spiral out of control? With all this pressure and speculation, it fell to team principal Andrea Stella to speak publicly to try and calm things down. And in his statements, he didn't shy away from responsibility, admitting the difficulties inherent in managing such a talented and competitive driver pairing, both with a real shot at the title. Stella was transparent in explaining that McLaren's fundamental principle is the concept of let them race. He knows that the moment you adopt that philosophy, challenges will arise. In Stella's own words, the fight for the Drivers' Championship is the only matter where you race together as a team, and actually, you can't have exactly the same interest for the two drivers who want to pursue their aspirations. It's an honest admission of the tightrope the team must walk, supporting both drivers equally, knowing that, in the end, only one can be champion. Despite the tensions, Stella made sure to praise his drivers' attitudes, stating that McLaren's success in navigating these turbulent waters so far is because we have Lando and Oscar on board. He described them as great individuals and contributors to the team's culture. However, the big question that remains is whether the let them race philosophy is sustainable when the prize is the Formula One World Championship. The contradiction was made clear. At Monza, the team intervened to ensure what it considered fairness after a pit stop error. In Singapore, the team abstained to ensure what it considered the fairness of a pure on-track battle. This duality of standards is what creates frustration and opens the door for theories of favoritism. Now, with the constructors' title already secured, the focus is entirely on the individual fight. The pressure on the drivers, and especially on Stella's management, will increase exponentially with every race. McLaren's challenge in the final stretch of the season is enormous. The team finds itself in the middle of a perfect storm. On one side, a multi-million-dollar legal battle exposing the behind-the-scenes of their negotiations. On the other, an internal rivalry at its peak where every point and every decision could define a champion. The upcoming races will be a trial by fire for the papaya rules, for Andrea Stella's leadership, and for the professionalism of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Will the harmony, however fragile, hold? Or will the will to win speak louder, risking a collision that could throw everything away? This battle promises to be the main storyline of the season's final act, and we here at Formula News USA will be watching every detail to bring it all to you. If you want to keep following this story and all the others in F1 with deep dive analysis, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends who are also speed fanatics. Your engagement helps us grow and bring our content to more people. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.